A new report from the Food and Agriculture Organization or FAO of the United Nations, the International Land Coalition or ILC, and the French Agricultural Research and Cooperation Organization, CIRAD, shows that 35% of land worldwide has formal documentation. Millions of people, particularly in Africa, live with insecure land rights, while customary lands, often rich in biodiversity and carbon storage, remain largely unrecognized. To help us understand the challenges and the opportunities for secure and inclusive land governance, we're joined live now by Adriano Campolina, Senior Policy Officer at the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations, joining us in Rome. Adriano, thank you for joining us. Good morning to you.
Thank you very much and good morning.
Thanks for making time to chat to us. Let's start on this point that we make then in our introduction. 35% of land worldwide is formally documented, and that's a short or small number according to this report. Why is it so hard to secure land tenure globally?
There are many challenges that really are at place. The first one is that we do have legal gaps and a weak recognition of legitimate rights. In many cases, the state do not recognize the ownership and management rights of customary communities, despite a de facto role in managing these territories. There's also high cost and complexity of formalization, the cost of surveying, registration, documentation, and the reality that many cities are not conceived to register overlapping group rights at scale. There's limited existing data and documentation, resulting in overlap claims, which sometimes fuels disputes and discourages long-term investment, and rising external pressures on land, urban expansion, industrial agricultural expansion, extractive industries, which intensify competition and dispossession risks where rights aren't documented and protected.
So as a result of all these factors you mentioned, then land remains unrecognized, especially customary land. So how does that or this uncertainty affect efforts to fight climate change and efforts to protect biodiversity?
It does affect quite intensely. Of the 42% of lands worldwide under customary tenure, nearly half are unrecognized by states. At the same time, these territories are extremely rich on biodiversity. This legal limbo leaves areas with more than a third of stored carbon and close to 40% of intact forests at risk. Socioeconomic risks linked to food insecurity, population growth, irrigation stress, urban expansion, and water scarcity are especially acute in the customary lands in Africa. The surge in climate mitigation and conservation initiatives aiming to protect ecosystems and address climate change is also placed intense pressure on customary lands, especially those that lack formal recognition or protections. Recent mega deals, such as the ones by UAE-based blue carbon in Kenya, Zimbabwe, Liberia, and Tanzania, involve claims to vast carbon rights, including to 1/5 of Zimbabwe's land, for example. So the pressures are really big on those lands.
And then there are inequalities that persist in land ownership between women and men. So what is the impact of that inequality when it comes to food security as well as people's livelihoods around the world?
When land is concentrated in the hands of a few, especially in the context where non-farm job creation is very slow and rural poverty is persistent, it can lead to unsustainable social and economic outcomes. Limited access to land reduces women's employment opportunities and decision-making power over family and community affairs, while increase the unpaid work, further reinforcing gender inequality. It's a kind of a cycle of exclusion. Gender gaps are widespread. Men are more likely than women to own or have secure rights to land in almost all countries with data, and the gap exceeds 20 percentage points in nearly half. Data on concentration of agricultural land shows that the top 10% of the largest landholdings operate 89% of agricultural land, highlighting the unequal distribution. In fact, using indicators that investigate further inequalities based on the distribution of agricultural land rights and land quality, in many countries reveal even starker inequalities.
Let's go back to the issue of customary land or customary systems. If we focus on the African continent, most land is under this system of customary law with little formal recognition. So what does this mean for governance generally?
As you said, in sub-Saharan Africa, 73% of land is held under customary tenure, but only 1% is formally recognized as such, with much of the rest undocumented and treated as under state ownership. This creates predictable governance and rural development problems. We have first administrative blind spots. If rights are not recorded or recognized, the planning, service delivery, taxation, land use regulation are harder to be done in a fair and transparent manner. Disputes and elite capture risks is another factor. Unclear authority and documentation makes it easier for powerful actors to appropriate land, increasing conflict and transaction insecurity. Investment and livelihood insecurity is another problem. Households hesitate to invest in soil, trees, irrigation, or long-term improvement if land claims can be challenged. And finally, you have the gender exclusion being amplified, where customary norms and statutory systems interact in ways that limit women's secure claims.
So what are the practical steps then that we'll need to take to make sure that land rights are more secure and inclusive in Africa? Because we're going to need this land for agriculture and urban growth.
Definitely, we do need that, and for the food security within Africa and around the globe. So the first one is to make land governance more effective, and therefore building the enabling environment that's required. One that moves beyond technocratic top-down approach and supports inclusive rights-based governance. Multi-stakeholder land governance systems at country level can enhance participatory policymaking, monitor implementation, in all jurisdictions, and evaluate the impact of land governance and rights on food security, sustainable development, gender equality, and peace. Strong governance frameworks, community participation, and mechanisms to address power imbalances are crucial for protecting land rights and resources. Creating those robust legal and institutional structures ensures inclusive decision-making processes and actively mitigating power imbalances. And this is necessary to address the inequalities that we are looking at. We also have to address the various pressures on securing land rights, align with the principles of the Fortuny guidelines on the governance of tenure, which are with some measures such as follows: legal recognition and protection of customary and collective tenure, not just treating it as state land, with clear procedures for community land governance and protection against dispossession, systematic participatory mapping and recording of customary territories with fit-for-purpose approach, so rights are visible to the state, investors, and communities themselves. Gender responsive tenure reforms and implementation, ensuring that women's rights are recognized in law and registered and recorded in practice with accessible dispute mechanisms, transparent land governance and safeguards for land-based investments, public disclosure, consultation, free prior investment, and informed consent where relevant, grievance pathways, oversight to prevent corruption and land grabbing, integrate tenure into climate and biodiversity programming, and finally, better monitoring and accountability.
Adriano, we're going to leave it there. Thank you so much again for your valuable insights.
Thank you very much and have a nice day.
You too. Adriano Campolina is Senior Policy Officer at the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations, joining us there in Rome, sharing insights on the challenges and opportunities for secure land tenure around the world.